She was blocking my path, yelling at me like I'd just committed some unspeakable crime. Thought she had me cornered, totally sure she was in control. But honestly, she had no clue what she'd walked into. The real surprise: she was the one who ought to be worried, not me. Because by the time she realized who the man in the shiny badge really was, it was already way too late for her to backpedal. Her little power trip had hit a dead end, and she was about to find out just how fast that kind of thing can come crashing down. So yeah, that's how I wound up here. My name's David Thompson, 52, retired detective, city police, did 25 years on the job. Everything from stolen bikes to busting up major crime rings. After my wife passed from cancer 2 years back, I sold the old family house, packed up my life, and moved to Willowbrook. I wanted to be closer to my son Mike. Good kid, hard worker, already a better cop than I ever was. I thought a little peace and quiet, new faces, maybe a sense of community would be good for me. Let me just say I was wrong about the peace and quiet part. Because if I learned anything from 2 years under this HOA, it's that tiny bits of power, especially in the wrong hands, can wreck your life faster than you ever imagined. Neighbors who should be out there grilling and swapping stories become enemies, and all it takes is one person with the wrong attitude. Enter Karen Mitchell. Mid-40s, sharp-edged haircut, permanently pissed-off face, you know the type, right? She called herself Deputy President of Community Security, which as far as I could tell was a title she'd just made up. No one in the HOA had ever heard of it, but she wielded it like she was guarding the crown jewels. Every morning she'd strut up and down the block at 7 sharp with her clipboard eyes darting for violations like a hawk looking for something to pick apart. Honestly, my first month here was quiet enough. That changed real quick after I said no thanks to her very generous offer to buy my place for her sister at 30% under market value, of course. I should have known that was the calm before the storm. Next thing I knew, I started getting violation notices dropped in my mailbox like clockwork. Each one more ridiculous than the last. The first one, my fence was apparently too tall. I'd measured it myself, 6 feet exactly, just like the official HOA docs. But Karen, with that nails-on-a-chalkboard condescending tone, told me I'd have to pay $200 for the HOA's official measuring service. Sure enough, their tape measure found it was 6'1", a whole inch. Pure magic, right? Not even a week later, I was slapped with a fine for planting non-compliant flower colors. Said my wife's beautiful peach-pink roses disrupted neighborhood harmony. Now, the regs said red, white, or pink were okay, but apparently peach is too close to orange for Karen's taste. So I got hit with a $50 penalty and a demand to pull up my wife's roses, which honestly just pissed me off more than anything. She stood right in my driveway telling me orange is not on the list. Mr. Thompson and I will not tolerate this sort of flagrant disregard. Like you can't make this stuff up. That's when I started digging. Dug out my HOA docs, started reading line by line, and you know what I found? The rules had been updated 3 times in 2 months, with every change laser-focused on my house. My address specifically called out in the new provisions. That's when the old detective in me kicked in. I set up cameras, recorded every HOA phone call, and called in a couple favors with the department. Turns out Karen had a long pattern of this kind of nonsense. I was just her newest target. She escalated quick, showing up every morning for mandatory inspections, snapping photos of everything from my mailbox to my hose, even letting herself into my backyard to inspect for hidden violations. She acted like she was leading a criminal investigation, all while my cameras caught every move. The straw that broke the camel's back, I put my house up for sale. That night, Karen calls absolutely losing it, yelling that I had no legal right to sell because I was under active investigation. She actually threatened to sue me personally if I went through with it. That same week, someone smashed my car window in the dead of night. Guess who my cameras caught lurking nearby? Karen's Build Her Walk, clear as day. Couldn't use it in court, but I knew. The next night, my sprinkler system gets sabotaged, flooding my yard and killing those same non-compliant roses. When I called the police, Karen swooped in, telling the responding officer I'd done it myself just to frame the HOA. She straight up told them I was unstable, maybe committing insurance fraud. The nerve on this woman was just wild. Then came her big move, an emergency HOA meeting official notice to every house with a long list of my supposed violations. Everything from parking too close to the curb to having a hostile attitude. She wanted me banished from my own home, like it was the Middle Ages or something. So I decided, all right, you want a showdown. Let's do this. I spent a week preparing, printed every version of the HOA rules, highlighted the targeted changes, contacted the state about the HOA's management company. Turns out they'd been operating without a valid license for months. Null and void, baby, and... oh yeah, discovered that Karen had been funneling thousands in HOA fees straight to her family's companies. Embezzlement clear as day. The kicker. She didn't even have the authority to call a meeting, only the HOA president could, and that position had been empty for months. Just when I thought it couldn't get any weirder, I checked my property deed with the county, only to find out my land and a good chunk of the neighborhood technically still belonged to me, thanks to a decades-old boundary screw-up the HOA never fixed. Karen had been running her little kingdom on property she didn't even own. Now Mike, my son, he's not just a cop, he's a good one. I called him, explained everything, and he told me straight up, "Dad, this is felony stuff. You have enough to take her down." So we made a plan. Mike would be around in uniform on the night of the meeting, all by the book. I also reached out to 3 neighbors Karen had bullied. They agreed to speak up if it came down to it. By the time that meeting rolled around, I was ready. Karen strutted in like she was queen room packed with every resident and started with her grand speech. "We're here to address the David Thompson problem." She read off my crimes, flowers, fence, car attitude, painting me as a threat to everyone's peace. I let her rant, then stood up, briefcase in hand, and asked to speak. She tried to cut me off, but I walked to the front and laid out my case, showed the original rules, the changes all aimed at me, the bogus management company, the financial records tracing community money right into her family's pockets. The room went dead silent, then started buzzing as folks realized what was really going on. Karen blew up yelling about legitimate business and disruption. But I kept going, laying out the financial evidence, the bylaw violations, the deed issues. Just then, Mike walked in, full uniform badge shining, announced he was responding to a noise complaint, asked if everything was all right. Karen tried to sick him on me, but Mike stayed cool, asked for her legal authority to run the meeting. She stammered, couldn't produce anything. That's when I dropped. The final bombshell explained she had 0 legal authority. The president's spot was vacant. She'd called the meeting illegally. Mike nodded, started taking notes. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with me to the station to answer some questions about these allegations." She lost it, screaming conspiracy, refusing to go, but Mike calmly read her rights as the neighbors watched, stunned. She fought threatened lawsuits, but he cuffed her and let her out, her authority finally completely gone. When it was over, I told everyone I was sorry for the drama, but maybe it was time for real leadership, someone who served the community, not themselves. After that, things changed fast. Karen got hit with probation. Community service had to pay back everything she stole, and then some. The cops found out she'd pulled this exact scam in other states, too. She was a pro at bullying her way to power, then bleeding everyone dry. Her husband divorced her, told me later he'd lived in fear of her for years. I sold my house to a great young family, decided to stick around nearby instead of moving away. Bought a smaller place just down the road from Mike. The new HOA president, a retired lawyer named Sarah, brought real transparency, set up a board so no one person could ever control the money again, and rewrote the rules to actually protect people's rights. My favorite new rule: any big change has to get 60% of homeowners on board with a full month's notice. No more backroom nonsense. The vibe in Willowbrook changed completely. Mike even got an official commendation from his department. Neighbors still talk about how he handled that night. The kids in the neighborhood, they actually laugh and play in the street again. Parents point to Mike as the cop who stood up for them. Even now, when I look at my new garden full of peach-colored roses, I remember what I told the crowd that night: standing up to bullies is about more than just protecting yourself. It's about making the whole community stronger. A year later, we held our first summer festival in ages. Karen had banned all that stuff before, said it attracted undesirables. But this time there was barbecue music, kids playing, laughter everywhere. I was honored to MC. I didn't mention Karen. No need. Everyone knew. Afterward, this little girl, Emma, ran up with a crayon drawing of my house flowers everywhere, bright orange ones front and center. She said, "I like your house, Mr. Thompson. You let us play soccer on your lawn. You're not mean like that lady was. That drawing hangs right next to the last picture I ever took with my wife." See, sometimes fighting for justice isn't just about you. It's about making the world better for everyone, especially the kids. Karen thought she could bully a retired cop into submission, but what she didn't understand is that bullies are the weakest people, and they fall apart the second someone stands up with truth and evidence. Sure, sometimes justice arrives late, but it always shows up. And when it does, all that imaginary power bullies hold over people just disappears like smoke. So tell me, where do you draw the line between rules that protect a community and power that destroys it? I'd love to hear what you think about justice, about standing up, about how a neighborhood should really work. Let's hear it.